You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Gap analysis is the process of comparing an organization's current security posture against its desired or required state. It reveals where existing safeguards fall short of industry standards, regulatory frameworks, or internal goals. By systematically evaluating policies, controls, and processes, organizations can determine whether they are adequately protected or where they remain vulnerable. This method provides a structured way to highlight weaknesses, ensuring that improvements are not based on guesswork but on evidence. For learners, gap analysis represents one of the most practical tools for aligning everyday operations with best practices and long-term objectives. The reason gap analysis is so critical lies in its role as a driver of continuous improvement. Cybersecurity is never a static goal. Threats evolve, technologies change, and compliance standards are updated. Without deliberate evaluation, organizations risk stagnation and the gradual erosion of their defenses. Gap analysis creates a feedback loop where current practices are measured, compared, and enhanced over time. It shifts organizations away from reactive approaches toward proactive improvement, ensuring they do not wait for incidents to reveal flaws. By identifying weaknesses before they are exploited, security teams strengthen resilience. Performing a gap analysis generally follows 3 steps: assessing current controls, defining desired goals, and identifying the difference between the two. The first step involves inventorying and evaluating current tools, processes, and training programs. The second step sets benchmarks, which may come from compliance requirements, industry frameworks like NIST or ISO, or internal risk goals. The third step pinpoints the discrepancies between current reality and those standards. This clear mapping allows organizations to see not just that gaps exist, but exactly where they are and what must be addressed. Gap analysis also drives prioritization of improvements by helping leaders allocate resources to the most urgent or high-impact gaps first. Not every weakness carries the same risk. For example, outdated patches on public-facing servers pose far greater risk than minor policy documentation gaps. By ranking deficiencies, organizations focus energy where it matters most, balancing business needs with security imperatives. This prioritization ensures that improvements provide meaningful risk reduction instead of spreading efforts too thinly. For learners, this illustrates how gap analysis turns abstract findings into concrete action plans. It is important to recognize that gaps can exist in people, processes, or technology. A gap in people might be insufficient user training or lack of incident response expertise. A process gap could include missing procedures for handling third-party vendor risks. Technology gaps might involve outdated firewalls, weak encryption, or insufficient endpoint visibility. By categorizing gaps this way, organizations avoid focusing solely on tools while neglecting human or procedural weaknesses. Effective gap analysis views security holistically, ensuring that every dimension of the defense ecosystem is evaluated and strengthened. Zero Trust is a modern security model built on the principle of never trust, always verify. Unlike traditional approaches that assume users and devices inside a network perimeter can be trusted, Zero Trust assumes that no request is inherently safe. Every user, device, and application must be verified continuously before access is granted. This approach reflects the reality of modern environments where attackers often bypass perimeters, insiders may misuse privileges, and cloud resources extend beyond traditional boundaries. Zero Trust replaces blind faith in location with rigorous verification, strengthening security in a dynamic digital world. The key reason Zero Trust rejects implicit trust is that traditional perimeter-based defenses are no longer sufficient. Historically, once users connected to an internal network, they were trusted by default. This model left organizations vulnerable to insider threats, lateral movement by attackers, and compromised devices. Zero Trust eliminates this assumption by verifying identity and context every time, regardless of location. It acknowledges that threats may come from anywhere and that implicit trust zones create opportunities for attackers to exploit. By dismantling these zones, Zero Trust reduces the risks created by outdated models. Within Zero Trust architecture, the control plane is the decision-making layer. It governs how policies are applied, how identities are verified, and how access decisions are made. The control plane ensures that requests are evaluated against policies every time, instead of assuming trust based on location or past behavior. By centralizing decision logic, organizations can enforce consistent rules across cloud, on-premises, and hybrid environments. For learners, the control plane represents the brain of Zero Trust, an engine that evaluates each access request against established conditions before granting or denying it. Adaptive identity is a critical feature within the control plane. It involves adjusting access decisions based on the risk context of the request. For example, logging in from a trusted office device may allow seamless access, while attempting the same login from a foreign country may require multi-factor authentication. Adaptive identity recognizes that not all requests carry equal risk and responds accordingly. This flexibility makes Zero Trust effective in balancing usability with security, ensuring legitimate users can work smoothly while suspicious activity faces heightened scrutiny. Policy-driven access control is another cornerstone of the control plane. Rather than relying on static rules, Zero Trust applies dynamic policies based on identity, device health, location, and activity. Policies dictate whether access should be granted, restricted, or denied. For example, a policy may require devices to have updated antivirus software before connecting to sensitive applications. This ensures that security decisions adapt to real-time conditions, reducing exposure to compromised users or devices. Policy-driven control ensures consistency, scalability, and context-aware enforcement across environments. The data plane in Zero Trust refers to the resources themselves, applications, services, and data being accessed. It is the layer where requests are executed, and access is either permitted or blocked based on control plane decisions. By separating the decision-making, control plane, from the execution, data plane, Zero Trust ensures that access policies are consistently enforced across diverse resources. This separation enhances scalability and clarity, allowing organizations to apply the same trust evaluation framework across systems without embedding complex rules into every individual application. In traditional networks, implicit trust zones were common, where once inside a perimeter, users had broad access without repeated verification. Zero Trust eliminates these zones by requiring continuous validation for every interaction. This change drastically reduces the ability of attackers to move laterally once inside the network. Every request is scrutinized, every action logged, and every privilege tied to explicit verification. Removing implicit trust zones is central to the Zero Trust philosophy, ensuring that no pathway remains unguarded simply because of where a user or device resides. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. In a Zero Trust architecture, the policy administrator plays a central role by communicating with both the policy engine and the enforcement points. This component ensures that the access rules defined by the organization are consistently applied across systems and environments. The policy administrator does not make the decision itself. That is the role of the policy engine, but it acts as the messenger that delivers the decision to the enforcement point. By coordinating these elements, the administrator ensures that requests for access are always evaluated properly, and that enforcement points act on authoritative instructions. The policy engine is where the access decisions are actually made. It evaluates requests against identity attributes, contextual information, and security policies. For example, when a user attempts to access a cloud application, the engine considers their role, device posture, geographic location, and even behavioral patterns. Based on this evaluation, it produces a verdict: grant, deny, or challenge with additional verification. The policy engine ensures that every access attempt is scrutinized in real time, providing the intelligence behind zero trust. Its decisions reflect the never trust, always verify philosophy at the heart of the model. The policy enforcement point serves as the gatekeeper of resources. It is the component that ultimately allows or blocks the access request based on the policy engine's decision. Enforcement points exist where users and systems actually interact with data, such as firewalls, proxies, or application gateways. They make zero trust actionable by implementing the rules at the edge of resources. This separation of decision-making and enforcement strengthens security, since enforcement points do not rely on assumptions but on real-time, policy-driven decisions communicated from the engine and administrator. Within the data plane, subject and system identities must be clearly defined and continuously verified. A subject can be a user, a device, or even a service requesting access, while system identities define the applications or databases being accessed. Both need to be authenticated and validated against established policies. This dual verification prevents not only malicious users but also rogue systems or compromised applications from slipping into the environment. By tying every interaction to a verified identity, zero trust reduces opportunities for lateral movement and hidden exploitation within networks. One of the most important benefits of zero trust is its ability to reduce the attack surface. By eliminating implicit trust and requiring verification at every step, attackers have far fewer pathways to exploit. Even if they breach one system, they cannot move freely without encountering repeated verification barriers. Microsegmentation further shrinks the attack surface by dividing networks into small, isolated segments, making it harder for threats to spread. This containment strategy reflects a shift from perimeter-based defense to granular, context-aware protection across every layer of the environment. Gap analysis plays a critical role in identifying where zero trust should be applied. By comparing current security measures against the zero trust model, organizations can see which areas rely too heavily on implicit trust or outdated assumptions. For example, a gap analysis might reveal that internal applications allow unrestricted lateral access or that legacy systems lack proper authentication. These findings help organizations prioritize zero trust adoption where it is most needed. In this way, gap analysis serves as a roadmap for transitioning from traditional defenses to modern, resilient security frameworks. Ongoing monitoring is a fundamental part of zero trust environments. Because no user or system is permanently trusted, continuous observation of behavior and context is essential. Monitoring tools detect anomalies such as unusual login times, unexpected data transfers, or suspicious system-to-system requests. This continuous scrutiny ensures that trust is always validated, not granted indefinitely. For learners, this highlights that zero trust is not simply about stronger authentication at the front door. It is about persistent vigilance that adapts dynamically to evolving risks. Zero trust should be viewed as a journey rather than a one-time project. Implementing it fully requires cultural, technical, and organizational changes that unfold over time. Initial steps may involve strengthening authentication, then expanding into microsegmentation, policy-driven access, and continuous monitoring. Organizations evolve toward zero trust incrementally, layering new practices onto existing systems. Viewing it as a journey prevents frustration, sets realistic expectations, and ensures that each step delivers measurable security benefits. Zero trust becomes not a destination, but a strategic posture that matures alongside the organization. There are challenges in adopting zero trust, particularly the complexity of implementation and the presence of legacy systems. Many organizations still rely on outdated infrastructure that cannot easily support continuous authentication or microsegmentation. Integrating zero trust with diverse systems requires planning, investment, and often cultural change in how staff perceive access and trust. Complexity can discourage adoption, but recognizing these challenges up front allows organizations to plan realistically. Overcoming them requires leadership buy-in, phased adoption, and clear communication that Zero Trust enhances productivity rather than obstructing it. Zero Trust aligns closely with modern compliance requirements, which increasingly emphasize accountability, identity management, and continuous monitoring. Frameworks like NIST, ISO, and GDPR all reflect principles embedded in Zero Trust, such as strong authentication, least privilege, and auditability. By adopting Zero Trust, organizations not only strengthen their security, but also streamline compliance. This alignment reduces regulatory risks and provides assurance to customers and partners that modern standards are being met. Compliance and security converge under Zero Trust, reinforcing each other in ways that build both trust and resilience. Zero Trust applies broadly to users, devices, and applications, treating each as a subject that must earn and maintain trust. A user logging in remotely, a laptop connecting to Wi-Fi, or a cloud service communicating with another application all undergo the same scrutiny. This universality makes Zero Trust flexible across diverse environments, from cloud platforms to industrial systems. By applying the same principal continuous verification to all subjects and resources, organizations ensure consistency and reduce blind spots. Learners should understand that Zero Trust is not limited to people but extends across the full digital ecosystem. In conclusion, gap analysis and Zero Trust work together as tools for strengthening security posture. Gap analysis identifies weaknesses by comparing current defenses to desired goals, while Zero Trust provides a modern framework for addressing those weaknesses through continuous verification, policy-driven access, and reduced trust zones. Together, they shift organizations from reactive, perimeter-based defenses to proactive, adaptive systems. For learners, this pairing highlights how strategic evaluation and modern models align, ensuring that defenses not only address today's threats, but evolve to meet tomorrow's challenges. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.